Imagine walking into a courtroom and seeing not a nervous defendant, not a humble citizen seeking justice, but a man in full police dress uniform, chest covered in medals, standing as if the entire building should bow to him. That's exactly what happened on a cold Tuesday morning in Providence Municipal Court. Police Chief Marcus Holloway, a man who commanded 340 officers, who coordinated security for the very courthouse he now stood in, who had spent 28 years building an empire of authority, walked through those doors as a defendant. What happened next would shock not just everyone in that courtroom, but reverberate across the entire nation. Because when a man drunk on power finally speaks his truth, when he looks a judge in the eye and utters 3 words that reveal everything, that's when justice shows its teeth. The words "I own you" would become the most expensive sentence Chief Marcus Holloway ever spoke. And Judge Frank Caprio's response would become a masterclass in why no badge, no matter how shiny, no matter how powerful, can ever own justice itself. If you've watched this far, don't miss the end of this video. Hit that like button, sit back, and prepare yourself for what you're about to witness, the moment when institutional power collided with judicial integrity, and only one could survive. Before we dive deeper, if you believe that no badge should place someone above the law, subscribe to our channel. This story will restore your faith that accountability still exists. The courtroom, it's 9:30 in the morning. Providence Municipal Court buzzes with the usual Tuesday rhythm: traffic violations, small claims, the routine machinery of local justice grinding forward. Then the bailiff's voice cuts through the murmur with an announcement that makes everyone freeze. The state of Rhode Island versus Chief Marcus Holloway. The room goes silent. Heads snap around. Whispers ripple through the gallery like electricity. People scrolling their phones suddenly look up, because everyone in Providence knows that name. Marcus Holloway isn't just any police chief. He's the man who rebuilt the department after a corruption scandal a decade ago. He's the face on the news during every major incident. The authority figure who speaks at city council meetings with the confidence of someone who's never been told no. And now he's standing in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom as a defendant. Holloway enters wearing his full dress uniform, navy blue jacket perfectly pressed, rows of medals catching the fluorescent lights, an American flag pin on his lapel. His chief's badge gleams on his chest like a shield. His posture is military, perfect, shoulders back, chin up, the stride of a man who has spent nearly 3 decades giving orders and watching people scramble to obey them. But there's something else in his walk, something that makes the courtroom observers uncomfortable. It isn't confidence, it's entitlement. The body language of someone who believes this entire proceeding is beneath him, a bureaucratic annoyance that will evaporate once everyone remembers who he is. He doesn't look nervous. He doesn't look humble. He looks annoyed. His cap remains firmly on his head as he approaches the defendant's table, a subtle but deliberate sign of disrespect in a courtroom where everyone else has removed hats, where everyone else understands the unspoken rules of deference to judicial authority. His lawyer, Richard Sterling, one of the most expensive defense attorneys in the state, stands beside him with a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Sterling's expression is calm, calculated, the look of someone who's handled powerful clients before and knows exactly how to navigate these waters. Or at least, he thinks he does. The first test, Judge Frank Caprio looks up from his bench, reading, glasses perched on his nose, expression neutral but observant. For those who don't know him, Frank Caprio has been on the bench for over 30 years. He's seen everything: liars, manipulators, the genuinely remorseful, and the defiantly arrogant. He's earned a reputation for fairness, for compassion when it's warranted, but also for an unwavering commitment to the law that no amount of pressure, political or otherwise, has ever bent. He's a small man physically, but everyone who has stood before him knows that his presence fills the entire courtroom. And right now, his eyes are fixed on the police chief who just walked in wearing his uniform like armor. Chief Holloway, Judge Caprio begins, his voice measured and calm. Please remove your cover in my courtroom. The words are simple, a basic instruction that everyone else followed without being asked. But in this moment, they carry weight. This isn't just about a hat. It's about respect. It's about understanding that inside these 4 walls, rank doesn't matter. Titles don't matter. Only the law matters. Holloway pauses for 3 long seconds. He doesn't move. His jaw tightens slightly, a muscle twitching beneath his skin. Then, slowly, deliberately, he removes his cap, but he doesn't hand it to his lawyer. He doesn't tuck it away. Instead, he places it prominently on the defendant's table right in front of him, positioning it so the chief's badge faces the judge. It's a statement, a challenge, a subtle message that says, I'm complying, but I'm reminding you who I am. Judge Caprio notices the gesture but says nothing. His face remains impassive as he opens the file before him. The courtroom is so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Every person in the gallery leans forward slightly, sensing that something unusual is about to unfold. The bailiff stands a little straighter. Even the court reporter's fingers hover over the keys. Waiting. The charges. Judge Caprio reads from the document. His voice clear and deliberate. Chief Marcus Holloway, you are charged with abuse of authority, intimidation of a city official, and obstruction of justice. These charges stem from an incident that occurred on the evening of March 14th in the parking garage of City Hall. You understand these charges? Holloway's response comes quickly. Without the pause that most defendants take to absorb the gravity of their situation. Your Honor, I understand there's been a serious misunderstanding about how chain of command works in the city. Judge Caprio removes his glasses slowly, folding them with precise movements before setting them on the bench. It's a gesture those familiar with his courtroom recognize as significant. It means he's giving someone his complete, unfiltered attention. Chief Holloway, I didn't ask about chain of command. I asked if you understand the charges against you. It's a yes or no question. Holloway shifts his weight, and for the first time, a flash of irritation crosses his face. Yes. Your Honor, I understand the words that were read. What I don't understand is why we're treating a professional disagreement as a criminal matter. Richard. Sterling places a hand lightly on Holloway's arm, a silent signal to let him handle this. Your Honor, if I may, my client is here in good faith to address what we believe is a gross mischaracterization of a conversation that took place between two city officials who have a long history of policy disagreements. Judge Caprio nods toward Sterling. Counselor, your client will have ample opportunity to present his defense. But first, let's establish the facts as alleged. He turns to the prosecutor. Ms. Chen, please present the complainant's statement. The victim's account. Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen stands, holding a document but not reading from it. She knows this case by heart. Your Honor, on March 14th at approximately 7:45 p.m., City Councilwoman Maria Rodriguez was leaving a City Council meeting where she had just presented a proposal for an independent civilian oversight board for the police department. As she walked to her vehicle in the parking garage, she was approached by Chief Holloway, who had attended the meeting but left before it concluded. According to Councilwoman Rodriguez, the chief positioned himself between her and her car door, blocking her path. The courtroom remains silent, but the energy has shifted. This isn't about a parking ticket or a noise complaint. This is about power, about intimidation, about the line between authority and abuse. Sarah Chen continues, her voice steady. Councilwoman Rodriguez states that Chief Holloway told her, and I quote, "You don't know who you're messing with. I know where you live. I know where your kids go to school." When she attempted to move past him to her vehicle, he remained in her path and continued, "Every cop in the city answers to me. You'll never feel safe again." Councilwoman Rodriguez felt threatened enough that she left her vehicle in the garage, called a rideshare service, and filed charges the following morning after consulting with her family and legal counsel. The gallery erupts in whispers. Several people gasp audibly. Judge Caprio raises his hand slightly, and the room immediately quiets. Holloway's face is turned red, not with embarrassment, but with barely contained anger. His hands grip the edge of the defendant's table. Sterling leans toward him, whispering urgently, but Holloway shakes his head. Maria's testimony. Judge Caprio looks directly at the chief. Chief Holloway, these are serious allegations. Before we proceed further, is Councilwoman Rodriguez present? Sarah Chen nods. She is available via video conference. Your Honor, given the nature of the charges and the protective order request, we felt it was appropriate to allow remote testimony. Judge Caprio approves with a nod, and moments later, a screen flickers to life. Maria Rodriguez appears, a woman in her mid-40s with tired eyes but a determined expression. She's sitting in what appears to be an office, professional and composed, but there's a tension in her shoulders that speaks to the stress this case has caused her. Councilwoman Rodriguez, Judge Caprio begins gently, his tone noticeably softer. Thank you for making yourself available to this court. I know this is difficult. Please, in your own words, tell us what happened on the evening of March 14th. Maria takes a breath, her hands clasped together on the desk in front of her. Your Honor, I had just finished presenting my proposal for civilian oversight to the City Council. It's something I've been working on for 8 months, gathering community input, researching best practices from other cities. The vote was scheduled for the following week. I stayed after to answer some questions from other council members, and when I finally left, it was dark. The parking garage was mostly empty. Maria's voice remained steady. but her hands tighten slightly as she continues. I was walking to my car on the third level when I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. I turned and saw Chief Holloway. He wasn't in uniform, just a suit, but I recognized him immediately. He'd been at the council meeting earlier, sitting in the back. I said hello, tried to be polite, but he didn't return the greeting. He just kept walking toward me, and there was something in his expression that made me uncomfortable. When I reached my car, I went to open the door, but he stepped in front of it, not aggressively, but deliberately blocking my path. She pauses, and Judge Caprio waits patiently, giving her time. He said, "That was an interesting presentation tonight." I thanked him, tried to keep it professional. Then he said, "You really think you can investigate my department? You think you can second-guess my officers?" I told him the oversight board wasn't about second-guessing, it was about transparency and accountability. That's when his whole demeanor changed. The courtroom is absolutely silent. Even Holloway has stopped fidgeting, his eyes fixed on the screen with an intensity that borders on hostile. Maria continues, her voice dropping slightly. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne. He said, "You don't know who you're messing with." Then he said, "I know where you live, Maria." He used my first name, which felt invasive to familiar. Then he said, "I know where your kids go to school. Lincoln Elementary, right? Your daughters. In Mrs. Patterson's 4th grade class." Your Honor, my daughter's classroom is not public information. The fact that he knew that specific detail terrified me. A tear rolls down Maria's cheek, but her voice doesn't waver. I asked him to move. He didn't. He just kept talking. He said, "Every cop in the city answers to me. Every single one. You push this oversight board through, and you'll find out what it's like when nobody comes when you call 911. You'll never feel safe again." Judge Caprio's expression has hardened into something carved from stone. "Councilwoman Rodriguez, how did you respond?" Maria wipes her eye quickly. I told him I was going to report this conversation. He laughed. He actually laughed and said, "Report it to who?" "I am the police." Then he stepped aside, finally let me pass. But as I walked away, he called after me, "Think about your kids, Maria. Think about what's really important." I was shaking so hard I couldn't get my key in the door. I left my car there and called an Uber. I spent that entire night awake, wondering if I should drop the proposal, wondering if my children were safe. But then I realized if I back down, he wins. And if he can do this to a city councilwoman, what is he doing to ordinary citizens who have no platform, no voice? Judge Caprio nods slowly. "Thank you, councilwoman. I know that wasn't easy." Unraveling turns toward Holloway. "Chief, you've heard this testimony. Before your attorney speaks, I want to hear from you directly. Did this conversation take place?" Holloway stands before his lawyer can stop him. Sterling reaches for his arm, but Holloway pulls away. "Your Honor, yes, I spoke to Councilwoman Rodriguez that night. But what she just described is a fantasy. A complete distortion designed to paint me as some kind of movie villain. I expressed my concerns about her proposal. That's it. That's what happened." Judge Caprio's eyes narrow. "So you did approach her in the parking garage after the meeting?" Holloway hesitates, realizing he's just confirmed a key part of her story. "I happened to be leaving at the same time. We had a conversation." "Did you mention her children?" Judge Caprio asks, his voice quiet, but sharp as a blade. "Did you mention knowing where they go to school?" Holloway's jaw works. "I may have mentioned that I'd seen her at a school event. It's a small city, Your Honor. We run into each other. That's not a threat. That's a fact." Judge Caprio leans forward. "Chief Holloway, did you tell her that every cop in the city answers to you?" Now Holloway's frustration breaks through completely. "They do answer to me. That's not a threat. That's my job description. I'm the police chief. I command the department. Is it now illegal to state basic facts about my position, Judge?" Caprio's voice remains level. "It becomes illegal when those facts are used to intimidate and threaten a city official for proposing legislation that's well within her authority to propose." Holloway's face flushes darker. "Your Honor, with all due respect, you're sitting up there making judgments about a world you don't understand. Councilwoman Rodriguez wants to handcuff my officers with bureaucracy, make them afraid to do their jobs, because some civilian board is going to Monday morning quarterback every decision they make in split-second situations." I was trying to explain the reality of what her proposal would do. Judge Caprio removes his glasses again, this time setting them down with deliberate force. "Chief Holloway, the issue before this court isn't the merits of civilian oversight. The issue is whether you used your position to threaten a sitting councilwoman. And based on what I've heard, including your own admissions, the evidence is compelling. The breaking point. Holloway's control finally snaps. Evidence. You want to talk about evidence? How about the evidence that I've kept the city safe for 12 years? How about the evidence that crime is down 23% since I took over? How about the evidence that when there's a real crisis, when there's an actual emergency, everyone in this building calls me? Judge Caprio's voice cuts through Holloway's outbursts like ice. Chief Holloway, sit down. But Holloway doesn't sit. He's past the point of strategic thinking, past the point where his expensive lawyer can save him from himself. He's operating on pure ego now, on 28 years of accumulated power. That's never been seriously challenged. No, Your Honor, I don't think I will sit down. Not until you understand something fundamental about how this city actually works. Richard Sterling is on his feet now, his professional composure cracking. Your Honor, I apologize. My client is understandably emotional. If we could take a brief recess. Holloway cuts him off with a sharp gesture. I don't need a recess, Richard. I need people to stop pretending that reality doesn't exist. He turns back to Judge Caprio, and something dangerous flashes in his eyes. You sit up there in your robe thinking you're untouchable, thinking you're the ultimate authority. But let me tell you something about power in the city, real power. Not the theoretical kind you read about in law books. Judge Caprio's voice drops to a whisper that somehow carries more weight than a shout. Chief Holloway, I am giving you one final opportunity to sit down, consult with your attorney, and remember where you are. Holloway laughs, a harsh sound without humor. I know exactly where I am. I'm in a building that my officers secure. I'm standing in front of bailiffs who report to my department. I'm in a city where the mayor's #1 concern is public safety, which means his #1 call is to me. So yes, Your Honor, I know exactly where I am. The question is, do you? The courtroom has gone from silent to suffocating. Every person present understands they're witnessing something unprecedented, something that will be talked about for years. Maria Rodriguez's image on the screen shows her hand covering her mouth in shock. Sarah Chen has stopped taking notes, her pen frozen above her legal pad. Even the bailiffs, trained to remain neutral, exchange glances of disbelief. Judge Caprio stands slowly, a rare move that signals the gravity of the moment. Chief Holloway, you are dangerously close to being held in contempt of court. Your badge does not give you the right to threaten judicial proceedings. Holloway takes a step closer to the bench, his body language aggressive, confrontational. Threaten? I'm not threatening anything, Your Honor. I'm educating you about reality. You think your authority stops at those courtroom doors. You think justice is this pure, untouchable thing. It's not. It's built on infrastructure, on systems, on people who make it work. And in the city, I control most of those people. Sterling is pulling at Holloway's arm now, desperate. Marcus, stop talking right now. Stop. But Holloway is beyond stopping. He's like a runaway train picking up speed as it approaches a cliff. When someone breaks into a house in the city, who do they call? When there's a hostage situation, who handles it? When judges like you receive threats, who provides your protection? Detail me. It's always me. Judge Caprio's face has turned to granite. So what exactly are you saying, Chief? Holloway plants both hands on the defendant's table, leaning forward with absolute confidence, with the certainty of a man who has never, not once in his entire career, faced real consequences. And then he says it. The 3 words that will define the rest of his life. I'm saying that in the real world, outside these 4 walls, I own you. The explosion. The courtroom explodes, not loudly, but energetically. Gasps echo from every corner. Someone in the back row stands up in shock. Maria Rodriguez's hand drops from her mouth, her eyes wide with vindication and horror. Sarah Chen's mouth falls open. Sterling actually steps away from his client, physically distancing himself from what was just said. The bailiffs tense there, hands moving instinctively toward their belts, unsure of what's about to happen, but knowing that something fundamental just broke. Holloway continues, either not noticing or not caring about the reaction. I own this building. I own the security systems. I own the response protocols. I own every officer who might be called if something goes wrong in this courtroom. And whether you want to admit it or not, that means I own everyone in it. He straightens up, adjusting his uniform jacket. So here's how this is going to work. This charge disappears. Councilwoman Rodriguez withdraws her complaint and her ridiculous oversight proposal. And we all go back to reality, where people understand that some positions come with privileges, where chain of command actually means something, where 28 years of service counts for more than political theater. He picks up his cap from the table, turning it in his hands. Because that's how power actually works, Your Honor. Not in theory, in practice. And one way or another, This ends the way it needs to end. The reckoning silence that follows is absolute. It's the silence of 100 people holding their breath simultaneously. The silence before an avalanche. The silence that comes when everyone knows that something irrevocable just happened. That a line was crossed that can never be uncrossed. Judge Frank Caprio stands completely still. He doesn't blink. He doesn't move for 10 full seconds. The only sound in the courtroom is the hum of the ventilation system and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights overhead. Those 10 seconds feel like an eternity. Holloway, suddenly aware that the room hasn't erupted in agreement or submission, that nobody is nodding along with his assessment of reality, shifts his weight uncomfortably. His fingers tighten around the cap in his hands. Sterling has moved to the far end of the defendant's table, his face pale. His career-long reputation possibly about to crumble alongside his client's. Judge Caprio removes his glasses with movements so deliberate they seem choreographed. He folds them carefully, precisely, and places them on the bench in front of him. Then he looks up, and his eyes carry a weight that makes even the most confident person in that room feel small. When he finally speaks, his voice is soft, almost conversational, but it carries to every corner of the courtroom with perfect clarity. Chief Holloway, in my 30 years on this bench, I have heard many things. I've heard lies so elaborate they could be novels. I've heard excuses that would make fiction writers jealous. I've heard desperation, rage, fear, and occasionally genuine remorse. But what you just said, what you just admitted to this court, on the record, in front of witnesses, that was different. That wasn't desperation or anger or fear. That was truth. Your truth. And it's the most dangerous thing I've heard in 3 decades. Holloway opens his mouth to speak, but Judge Caprio raises a single finger, and the police chief, perhaps for the first time in years, actually stops. You didn't mean to reveal who you really are. The judge continues, his voice still quiet, but gaining intensity with each word. You thought you were explaining reality, asserting dominance, putting me in my place. But what you actually did was confess. You confessed to believing that your badge gives you ownership over the justice system. You confessed to viewing public servants, including judges, as your property. You confessed to running the city not as a public servant, but as a feudal lord, who believes everyone else exists at your pleasure. Holloway tries again. Your Honor, that came out wrong. I didn't mean. Judge Caprio's voice rises for the first time not to a shout, but to something harder, sharper. No, it came out exactly right. For perhaps the first time today, you told the complete, unvarnished truth. You meant every word. You believe every word. And that belief, Chief Holloway, that fundamental corruption of what your badge is supposed to represent, is precisely why you're standing before me as a defendant. Instead of sitting in your office commanding respect, the judge walks slowly from behind the bench, descending the steps until he's standing at floor level, something he rarely does. The symbolism isn't lost on anyone. He's meeting Holloway eye to eye, removing the physical barrier between judicial authority and the defendant. You mentioned my robe, Chief. You said I sit up there thinking I'm untouchable. You're partially right. I do wear this robe. And do you know why? Not for power, not for status, not to feel superior. I wear it because it represents something bigger than me, bigger than you, bigger than both of us combined. It represents the law itself, blind, impartial, unconcerned with badges or bank accounts or political connections. Judge Caprio steps closer, his presence filling the space. You think you own me. You think your department, your officers, your security protocols give you ownership over justice. Then let me educate you on what ownership actually looks like. Let me show you what happens when someone mistakes temporary authority for permanent power. Justice delivered returns to the bench, and when he sits, there's a finality to the movement that makes everyone understand that the moment of reckoning has arrived. Chief Marcus Holloway, based on the credible and corroborated testimony of Councilwoman Maria Rodriguez, the witness statements I have reviewed, and most damningly, your own words spoken in this courtroom, words that demonstrate not just a single act of intimidation, but a systematic belief that you are above the law, I find you guilty on all charges: abuse of authority, intimidation of a city official, and obstruction of justice. Holloway's face drains of color. Sterling sinks into his chair, knowing that any appeal will be nearly impossible after his client's performance. The sentence is as follows. Judge Caprio continues, his voice now carrying the full weight of judicial authority. You are fined $50,000, to be paid personally within 30 days. Not from any police fund, not from any union account, not from your pension, from your personal assets. Additionally, effective immediately, you are suspended from your position as police chief without pay. Pending a full administrative review by the City Council and the Mayor's office, a protective order is granted to Councilwoman Rodriguez. You are to have no contact with her direct or indirect hand. You are to remain at least 500 feet from her residence, her workplace, and her children's school at all times. But Judge Caprio isn't finished. His next words will reverberate far beyond this courtroom. Furthermore, I am referring this entire case to the State Attorney General's office for investigation into potential criminal conspiracy charges. Your statement that you own this courthouse and the people in it suggests a pattern of corruption that extends far beyond tonight's incident. I am also formally requesting that the Governor of Rhode Island initiate an independent investigation into your entire tenure as police chief, examining whether other officials, other citizens, have been subjected to similar intimidation tactics. He pauses, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. Chief Holloway, you came into this courtroom believing your badge made you untouchable. You leave it understanding that in the eyes of the law, you are just another citizen who broke the rules. And that, sir, is how justice actually works. The gavel falls, the sound echoes through the courtroom like thunder, and in that moment, everyone present knows they've witnessed something rare and powerful. The moment when unchecked authority finally met its match.